Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today in this presentation of IT career pathways. So today we're going to be talking about careers in support, networking, and cybersecurity. Um, Thanks to both our guests that are joining us here in person at the Ignite Hub, and also our guests that are joining us online via Zoom. Just so everybody knows, this presentation is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the Ignite Hub YouTube channel in a day or two. Everybody that registered to this event, regardless if they attended or not, will receive an email with link to the presentation. Also, you can look at past presentations. Most of our events here at the Hub are hybrid, so we record them and we put in our YouTube channel. In addition, everybody's gonna get a copy of this presentation. All the links are live, and you will be able to take a look at it again if you wish. All right, thank you again. So again, this is part two of a three-part series. Last week we talked about the general overview. Today, again, we're going to be talking specifically about careers in support, networking, and cybersecurity. And next Wednesday we will close the series, doing a deeper dive in careers in data, cloud, and web/app development. So for those of you who joined us last week, a couple of things at the beginning. It's going to be a little repetitive, but then we're going to talk a lot more about the specific paths in this presentation. All right, so just bear with me. Um, so the objectives for today's presentation, it's going to be approximately 2 hours. We have a lot to talk about. There's going to be a little break in between. And okay, so our objectives for tonight, we're going to explore career paths in IT support, networking, and cybersecurity. Number two, we're going to discuss the skills, both hard and soft, that are required for each one of these paths, certifications, training necessary, and then we're going to be doing a little bit of look into the salaries and job outlooks for these careers. Again, we're going to be taking one specific role into each one of these paths, and then we're going to investigate it a little bit more, and we're going to clarify as what those number means. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with other helpful resources that may help you into your search here at the Ignite Hub and everywhere else. So thank you. So again, a little bit about myself. Again, this is a repeat for those of you who joined us last week. My name is Eduardo Novoa. I am the Technical and Training Development Coordinator here at the Ignite Hub. I've been here at the Ignite Hub for almost 3 years, but I've been in the IT industry for over 20 years. And I started back uh, when repairing and building computers was still something that it was doable and economically feasible. So that's where I got my start. And I've done a little bit of everything. In the past 2 decades, I've done support, so we're going to be talking about that. I've done some system administration, a little bit of networking, and I have also worked in cybersecurity. So I do have a bachelor's degree in technical management with a concentration in business information systems, a master's of science in cybersecurity, and I currently hold the CISSP certification. We are going to be talking about that certification actually today. That is considered an advanced certification. So we're going to be talking about certifications for all these three paths. And specifically, we're going to be touching on that particular one. So you'll understand what that means. All right. So that's me. But I would like for everybody else here to tell me who you are. So if you can take out your phone, and also our guest online can do the same thing, and just we're gonna do this Mentimeter, and just please tell us your name. Doesn't have you to be your full name, your current occupation if you want to share that, but most importantly is what you expect to get out of this workshop. So that will give us a good idea of what we are trying to accomplish here. So yeah, let's just take a moment and let me let's give it a couple of minutes for everybody to respond. I appreciate the answers. I think that helps us all to see where we are. So I'm going to switch to the Mentimeter now. so everybody can tell us, can see what we're looking at. All right. Usually takes a couple of minutes. Last week, this worked really well. This is a new thing that we're trying. This presentation has been reviewed. This is one of our core presentations here at the Hub. Is one of the things that we've been doing since the Hub, since I started here, pretty much. And we always revise and we always try to get new things to better help all of you. So let's see. All right. I see people is responding. Why my response is not showing? Let me see. Did I do something wrong? Make sure that I didn't hide. Okay. Oh.
Hi, Eduardo. Here,
Hello.
Gustavo. I think we don't see the QR in order to put our comments in the
Yep, I
specific
am trying to figure out what's happening here. Thank you. Because last week we didn't have this problem.
We are seeing a page with a.
There you go. Thank you. So we're starting looking at some of the. So Jen, she's a microbiologist and wanted to learn more about system support. Okay, great. Thank you so much. That it's amazing. We're going to definitely going to talk about that part of the support path. It's definitely it is a big path, and we're gonna see about that. Let me see if there's today. I think no, it's nothing that I'm doing wrong. Looks like that the Menti servers are just a little slow, so just bear with me. So we have Orlando. Here's a marketer information. Nancy, sales with the AWS cloud. Okay. I was hoping to learn about different IT career pathways that don't involve direct sales, preferably that includes project management or data analytics. Actually, okay, super interesting because what data analytics we're going to be talking a little bit about next week. So you are involved in sales, which is actually, believe it or not one of the roles that a lot of people associate with IT, but it is a big role. There's a lot of people in sales. Actually, we had one of our guest speakers here. I think it was back in December. He talked about how he built a career doing sales in IT, and actually he did work for Amazon. So yes, there's this is part of what we're going to be talking about when we talk about the skills and the different things, the different roles within each one of these areas. So hopefully you'll find something useful. Also, yes, specifically for data, we're going to be talking a little bit more next week. Christopher, Montgomery College student. Okay, interested in getting a job in one of these fields? Yes. So again, just thank you, Christopher. Luis, currently a student and do part-time website development, wanted to get into IT careers. So you are actually already in an IT career. You are doing, doesn't matter if you're doing part-time, but you are already doing website development. We're going to be talking a little bit more about both web and app development next week. But I guess you just want to find about other paths. Great. Thanks for everybody. This really is helpful. Helps me understand where you are and what you're trying to get out of this. So Christopher, yes, most of the people who attend these workshops is because they're either trying to get into the field or switching to a career into the field. They already have a career somewhere else, but they're trying to either get into IT or getting more IT related skills that can help them in their jobs. And we talked a little bit about that last week. We talked about the intersection of IT and other fields. And one of the things that came true was that nowadays a lot of companies while they have a specific IT department, everybody now, regardless of the role, regardless if they are into the IT department or not, is somehow or in some way doing some IT functions. And that is just because that's the nature of how IT has embedded itself in every single one of occupation, in every single area, and in every single aspect of our lives. So I think that yes, that's why we're trying to give some more information, and hopefully it a point to start for all of you. And we have Tanya, work at JSSA, driver for seniors, exploring this pathway to see if it aligns with my goal of securing a remote position. Okay, good. Thank you, Tanya. Actually, we did talk about that last week. And again, after you receive the link to this presentation, you can review last week's presentation. But that's one of the things that we talked about, that a lot of careers, not all of these different roles in IT are can be done either fully remotely or in a hybrid format. Some do require you to be present all the time, but those are really very few. And I gave that example that when I was working here in the IT department at the college, and when we had the pandemic, I remember working here until Friday, and then over the weekend they decided that the college was going to go fully remote starting on that Monday. I was able to switch my job, that it was in-person job, pretty much 100% remotely, and I stayed like that for 6 months. So yes, that is one of the what is attractive, is attracting rather people into careers in IT. So thank you all for sharing that, and we're gonna continue with the presentation. All right. So let's go. Let's switch back. Okay, thank you so much for everybody that participated. So let's start here with the career path for IT support. All right, so let's start by, and again, this I repeat for a little bit, but it is worth mentioning. All right, so what are the common functions into this particular path? And we one thing that we mentioned before we got into this, it's last week we mentioned that every single one of us have talked to at some point to somebody in IT support. If you had to call the help desk, you talk to somebody in IT support. And that's probably what people mostly associate with IT support. But if you needed a password reset, you talk to somebody in IT support. If you got a new job and you were assigned a new computer, or in your current job, and then they replace your computer, your laptop, your printer, you talk to somebody in IT support. And there's a lot of other people in IT support that you might have never talked to. All right, but for the most part, you have to listen to customer description of issues. And just like I said last week, that could be easier said than done. And I'm going to repeat this little analogy that I have for this. Um, the help desk specialist is considered the entry level job in IT. A lot of people have had their start, into their IT careers by doing help desk, and that's help desk. Tanya, is one of those careers that can be done 100% remotely. Um, Now, looks again is the entry level in IT, but just this particular skill that is needed. Listen to customer description of issues, it is something that it can be a little bit tricky, and it's something that you get better the more that you do it. I used the analogy last week of this is a little bit like being the triage nurse in the emergency room, right? That you get two people coming to you at the same time, they're both complaining of chest pains. So your job as a triage nurse is to ask the correct questions and listen to what these people are telling you. You need to figure out if this person is having a heart attack or is having heartburn, because you need to decide, is this person needs to go stat to the operating room, or I can just sit this person and let him rest, and but that's again, that's kind of what you need to do. You need to listen to what the customer is saying, and most of the time the customer do not have technical language. So you have to be doing a couple of times. First of all, do not jump into conclusions. And then second, you need to ask the correct questions. And third, and this could be the most important thing, you need to, in your mind, start translating non-technical language to technical language, or vice versa. Because if you cannot resolve the issue, you will need to create a ticket for somebody else to take care of that. And you need to provide technical information or the steps that you took to try to resolve the issue for this customer, right? And then it's diagnosing computer problems and problem solve or troubleshooting to solve issues, which is kind of very, very related. You need to figure out what the problem is, what the possible solutions are, how long it's going to take, what it's going to take, and then you need to communicate that back and forth with the client or with the person that it's involved at the other end, right? Set up, repair computer workstations. Again, that's more and more is more like in the setup. And when we say repair, it's mostly troubleshooting issues that they have. We don't do a lot of repair anymore. Install, configure hardware and software. So that's again very general, the common functions on this particular area. So let's look at these example job titles, right? And then I already talked a lot about being a help desk specialist. So in support, usually there are three levels, and sometimes they're actually spelled like that. When you look at job titles, it says support tech level 1 or tier 2 or level 2 and tier 3. So again, help tier 1 or help desk specialist or field service technician, whatever you want to call it, that is considered tier 1 support. That means that you are the first person that somebody talks to when they have an issue. And then either A, you resolve that issue, okay, which believe it or not, help desk is supposed to resolve more than half of the issues. When people call you, you if you're a good help desk specialist, you can resolve a lot of those issues. There are some that you can definitely cannot resolve because you need to be in person. And like I said, usually these you are not right next to where the person is calling you from. You can be in another country, you can be in another city, you can be in another building. So again, so if you cannot resolve the issue, then you need to route it to either a tier 2 support specialist or another group, okay? Let's say there is an issue with the internet being down or whatever. After you ask a few questions just to determine where the problem may lie, you go like, okay, I need to contact the networking people, all right? So you need to, if you cannot solve the issue, you need to route it to the correct group or to the correct person. So the ticket doesn't go bouncing from person to person and never gets resolved. Um, so that's level 1, and then tier 2 again. It's usually if the person in tier 1 cannot resolve it, tier 2 are the people. Those are the boots on the ground. Those are the people that sometimes you see they go into your office and they tell you what is the problem, and they work with you to try to resolve it. Okay. Then again, this can be a lot of different things depending on the size of the company. Tier 2 support specialists may also be doing a little bit of networking, or working on the on the closets, doing a little bit light networking. It could be also that they assist other groups within IT, like the security group, is there's such thing. When I started here at Montgomery College, I started as a tier 2 support specialist, and I had to help the network engineers. I had to help the security department with investigations, with things like that, securing, because we were the boots on the ground. We were the people that were actually there. And also just doing computers in labs and stuff like that, installing, troubleshooting printers, that type of stuff. Tier 3 now, it's the higher tier of support, and that's usually people that you might have either talk on the phone or maybe via email. You don't know where these people are. Also, believe it or not, tier 3 could be fully remote, because usually these people are the people who takes care of the systems of that are like enterprise wide, right? So it doesn't matter if the company is like in several cities, in several states, or across the world, whatever. These are the people that, let's say that you got a promotion and you need access to a new system. These are basically system administrators. Or system administrators can be tier 3 support. These are the people that can push something to your computer, or just they can do usually this remotely. And this is the higher tier. Okay. So with that, let's talk about, okay, first of all, before we go into this graphic and the other graphics that are going to look like this for the next, for this week and next week, let's talk about what this means and where I got this information from. Okay, like I said, we are going to be looking at a very specific position, right, in each one of these. So this is for IT support specialists. Okay, that is and it's the source is ZipRecruiter. And again, if you want to, you will be able to click the link on your presentation and it will take you there. Now, what is a median salary? Okay, so the way you can search these a lot of different ways. You can search in your city, in your state. The way that these searches were set up is a nationwide search. So in the whole of the United States, you can also see in the United States map, as you can see the concentration of this particular where the majority of the jobs are. The deeper the blue, the where most of the jobs are. Also, that medium average, what that means is that is the salary that is being taken from all people in this position, regardless of they being there for like just 2 weeks or 10 years. Usually nobody stays there for 10 years, but you know what I mean. So some people, it's been, so this is the medium of all the regions, all the different cities, and that, again, that the salary is not going to be the same for somebody that works in this area or in New York or in Silicon Valley. These are high cost of living areas. So these numbers may be a little bit higher in this area. Okay. So this number represents somebody that is being in this particular position. I will say is not just starting, but it's like kind of like in the middle of this position, right? So $70,000 for a help desk specialist with a couple of years under their belt sounds about right in this area. But again, support is huge. That's the point, right? Where you start. I've seen people in tier three support, tier two include actually, and tier three making well over $100,000 a year. It is possible here. Actually, I've seen it here in Maryland. And again, it depends on what experience you have, the years, and then we're going to be talking a little bit more about education and certifications. Okay, so I just wanted you to understand what that means, okay? Because now we're going to be talking as how, if you are interested in doing this, how you get there, what are the skills that are needed, and then we're going to be talking specifically about certifications. Last week, we talked about degrees versus certifications, and then we talked about that while a degree is not necessary for most things, for most entry level positions in IT, is not necessary to get in. A certification might be, but in order to advance in the career, is yes, it's absolutely necessary. Especially if you want to get into management, it's going to be necessary. And again, management is where the money is going to be in any of these areas because all these requires management. Okay, so that's that for the IT support specialist salary in the United States. Now, let's look at the job outlook for this specific position again. And then if you go to that, you can look for all the other different, titles, job titles that are out there. So the projected computer support specialist job growth rate is 10% from 2018 to 2028. So about 80,000 new jobs are projected over the next decade. And the salaries have increased about 9%. So they have kept up at least with inflation in the last 5 years. So what that means is like they are not super hot jobs, but they are at least keeping up with inflation, meaning that these jobs are everybody needs IT support. And when you go and look for jobs, you're going to see a ton of jobs for support. All right. Because again, that's what you need for the most part. You need people to talk to your clients, to talk to your customers, and then try either to resolve the issues, which most than half of the time are really simple to resolve, user error, or just something that you need to teach them how to do. But they are steady. What it is like there's always need for this. This is what these numbers are telling me, okay? There are over 350,000 open computer support specialist jobs. Oh, I'm sorry, currently employed in the United States. And there are about 110 active support roles openings in the US. Again, depending on the region, those numbers may be, it depends. Again, those where the blue areas were deeper blue, obviously that's where the most need is going to be, and probably where the salaries are going to be the highest. So now let's talk a little bit about skills. Last week, again, we talked and I just want to take a moment to talk about this. We talk about how the hard skills or the technical skills are very important and very necessary in IT. Obviously, IT is a skill-based area, profession. You know, all these different areas that we're going to be talking about. The employers are looking for specific technical skills or specific technical knowledge. These are important, and then again, they are specific to different areas. One thing that I believe I mentioned last week is that IT it's huge. There's a ton of things that you can do in IT, and you cannot know it all. There's impossible. It's not, so it's always going to be that you need to understand a little bit of everything, but you have to specialize in these particular areas with everything else. So when we talk about these technical skills, we're going to be talking, and when I say baseline, I think that this is the minimum that employers will be asking, okay, for these particular jobs. And then another thing that you're going to see in the next slide is that the soft skills are going to be the same for all of the different paths with little deviation. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more when we get there. But let's talk about this, the technical skills, okay, for IT support. Troubleshooting, we talked about that, and that you're going to see in every single one of these areas because IT is troubleshooting. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do, either you're building a website, you're building an application, you are trying to help a customer with an issue, you are trying to secure a system, is always troubleshooting. At the end of the day, that's what it is trying to find solutions to challenges, to problems, to situations, okay? So that skill set is across the board. I talk about that. I said, if that's the kind of thing that you like, then IT is a good career path for you. If not, then maybe you need to look somewhere else. And I'm not trying to be facetious or anything. I mean, it's just the truth. So, and in this particular one, hardware is important to understand. Why? Because that's what you're going to be troubleshooting a lot. And when I say hardware, I want to expand that a little bit because hardware is a word that includes everything, right? I'm talking about specifically understanding. Again, these days, we do not repair computers for the most part. But we need to see what part or what area of the computer, the hardware failed, so we can understand the problem, what needs to happen for us to resolve the problem. Uh, so it mainly has to do with understanding how endpoints work. And again, that's another word that I described last week. In the end, in the past, we used to call computers. Yes, because computer was the endpoint, and when I say an endpoint, this is an endpoint. It's whenever communication starts, and ends. It's an end point. But that used to be only computers, right? And then we had laptops, and now we have phones, and then we have tablets, and then we have smart watches and smart things. So anything that connects to the network is now an endpoint. So we need to understand how these things work. Again, we are not here electrical or mechanical engineers, but we need to understand how these things work because you cannot troubleshoot them if you don't understand how they work. Okay. And then the other one is super important, operating systems. And the Windows, as you can see, is bolded there again because Windows 95, 97% of the world computers run on Windows, right? Windows, for better or worse, it's the world's number one operating system. So you need to understand, and I dare to say, need to be a power user in Windows in order to help people, troubleshoot issues. Again, depending on where your shop is. Again, it could be Mac OS, and nowadays with the phones, you need to understand iOS and Android. The last one is important. I stressed that last week a lot. In certain areas of IT, the knowledge of Linux is essential. We're going to see today, especially in the next two areas, maybe not here a lot in support because in support, you don't really do a lot of Linux. But if you're in networking or cybersecurity, you need to understand Linux distributions and the basics of the Linux operating system. And again, there are a lot of different distributions that are specific for different things, but a lot of things are based in Linux. Everything that is network, most of network operating systems, and a lot of the operating systems were for network devices run in some version of Linux. Office software. When I mean by that, I actually could have put Office 365 or Microsoft Office. Again, just like Windows is the number one operating system, the number one productivity suite in the world is going to be Office 365. And when I say that, it's going to be Word and Excel and PowerPoint, specifically those three, which a lot of people use a lot. And then again, a lot of the support calls, believe it or not, are not this is broken, but it's rather how do I, do XYZ in Excel? How do I make this column wider or whatever it is? So again, being very good in these pieces of software is important. The next one, it is, I believe it's what makes the difference. And this is in my experience and in my opinion, this is what separates a good IT support specialist and an OK RT support specialist. Fundamentals of networks and security. All right, let me explain that a little bit. Like I mentioned last week, and we're going to see in the next section, networks, everything runs in the network. Without the network, there's no IT, okay? IT is a network. The internet is a network. Everything is a network. So you need to understand, and again, there's a lot to learn. Let me tell you this. I believe I mentioned this last week. Of everything that I learned in the past 20 plus years, and again, I say this humbly, nothing is being super, super difficult, but it's been a lot to learn. And don't expect to know everything. Again, I learn every day. But one of the things that I believe is super important is for people to understand, even if it's a very high level. If you're in IT, I don't care what area of IT you are, you need to have a very high level understanding of networks. And when I say computer networks, I mean how they work. I did mention last week that for all of those who are kind of familiar with this, the OSI model, the 7 layers, everything that we do in IT passes from up, down, down, up, those 7 layers. So you need to, while you don't need to know the nitty gritty, you need to understand what happens in each one of these things. So you need to understand if the problem is in the cable, in the wall jack at layer 1, or if it's in the application at level 7, okay? Where the problem may be. And that goes hand in hand with security. I mentioned that understanding security concepts is important these days because 20 years ago, we used to build computers, we used to build networks, we used to build applications, websites, systems, you call it, and then we thought about securing them afterwards, right? That was the paradigm. Well, that's not how it works now. When you start building, designing, planning any of these things, you need to start thinking about with security in mind. How is this going to be a secure system, a secure computer, a secure network, whatever it is? All right. So you need, again, you don't need to be have a CISSP or have a master's in cybersecurity. You need to understand at a very high level what cybersecurity means and what it covers, which is a lot, believe it or not. And then other software. When I say other software, that means specific things that specific companies may want you to know because they use that particular thing. It could be that they will like for you to know a specific, tool for help desk, because that's what they use, and they will like you to know it instead of having to train you. Unfortunately, employers these days are not willing to train people. I'm going to be straight, and you probably know this. I'm preaching to the choir. Not everybody is willing to train people. They just want they want a unicorn, somebody that knows 20 different things and they have 10 years of experience in each one of them. They're not going to find that, obviously, but they want to get somebody that is as close as that and then pay them, as little as they can. Well, so But that's what I mean by other software. It could be a specific pieces of software that the company uses, and they're like, I don't really want to train you on that. I want you to at least have an understanding basically of what this does, how it operates, so you can learn on the job. All right? That's what I mean. Okay. All right. So let's see. All right. So let's talk about soft skills. And by the way, what I said, in the last slide, and let me just go back. I'm sorry. Let me go back. It's when I say this is baseline, okay, other things may be asked of you, but I think that this is important. You're trying to get into support or anything like that. I believe that you need to have knowledge in these things because, again, that's what employers are going to be asking. How do you gain that knowledge? We're going to get to that part, okay? So baseline soft skills, and then we're going to go through these one time, and then pretty much it applies to each one of the different areas. Communication, okay? And before we begin, I mentioned last week that soft skills are appearing more and more and more in job postings, okay? I've said this and I repeat this every time that I have the opportunity. If you're thinking to get into IT because you're not going to talk to people, I'm sorry. That's not how it is. Maybe that's how it was 20, 30 years ago. People working in a basement never had to talk to people. IT, like I said, is nowadays a business function. Okay? It's not a nice to have. It's not a separate thing in an institution. Everything runs in IT. That means that I don't care in what area of IT you work. Obviously, if you're in support, you're going to be talking to a lot of people, a lot more, but you need to communicate with people, okay? Either be clients, co-workers, other departments in IT, your bosses, your subordinates, and sometimes even vendors, people outside the organization, okay? So that communication keeps on appearing more and more and more. We had last year in this same room, we had people representing chambers of commerce from all over this area, the city of Rockville, the city of Gettysburg, and county and whatnot. And they were talking about specifically what their IT employers are looking for. And believe it or not, they did not say they're looking for this certification, they're looking for this. The number one thing that they said they were wanted was soft skills, that they have people that cannot communicate properly. And now that is so important. So again, I we talked about last week about how to conduct um, an assessment of your skills. And I made a recommendation. I said, look, you're looking for whatever position you're looking for, go to different hiring websites. Let's say there is a network engineer. Look at 4 or 5 different positions in the area and look at the commonalities. Look at what, again, each one of them is going to be asking for a unicorn. So don't get scared for that because is a wish list. They're not going to get all that. They understand that. But start looking at what is common in these 5 positions. So they're looking for A, B, C, D. All right. What do I have? Okay, looks like that I have A, C. I'm not so sure about B, and then maybe D. So that's how you do it. You need to be very honest with yourself, but do not castigate yourself either. We talked about thinking about those transferable skills, and a lot of these soft skills, for the most part, are transferable skills. The technical skills may not be as transferable, but all of these is 100% transferable from whatever industry you have been, have done. Things like management, I mentioned it last week. If you have managed people in McDonald's, if you have been a chief manager at McDonald's, you have management experience because at the end of the day, management is managing people and processes. Yes, you have not managed in IT, but you understand what management is, right? So you need to think about that. Um, but these things are super important. Organization, and again, going back to that example of the triage nurse, in IT, you're going to get 10 things coming to you at the same time. All right. You need to be able to say, I need to take care of this first. This one can wait. Again, which one of my patients I need to take care of like right now or they're going to die and which patient can wait a little bit. So that. And then we have analysis. And analysis, I mean, that's something that we need for everything and anything in life. But in IT is specifically very important. And because troubleshooting, all that stuff, it's nothing but analysis. You need to analyze the information, your knowledge, and try to figure out what's happening, right? And the next one is huge. The next one is huge, learning and research. I mentioned last week that, and I mentioned a few moments ago too, that, I've learned a lot in the past 20 years, but everything, and I continue to learn every day. I learn something today. Um, Everything that I've known, that I know, probably about 50%, 60% I learned in school. The other I had to learn by myself. And that is the reality in IT. These technologies come fast and furious, and then you need to be really on top of what's happening, or you're risking to becoming a dinosaur really fast, unfortunately. So that capacity of learning and researching, and it's okay. One of the things that a lot of people is afraid of saying is like, they go to a customer, a client, and they see a problem. It's okay to say, I don't know, I have not seen this, but let me find out. I've said that so many different times. I cannot remember how many times I said it. And actually, people appreciate it because, again, nobody knows everything. But you need to have the capacity to learn and research that quickly and apply it and add it to your knowledge. And last but not least, interpersonal, which is basically the capacity of being personable to be communicate with other people. You don't have to be nice. You don't have to smile all the time, but you need to be professional. And that's what we mean by that. Okay. So again, I think we're not going to do the Mentimeter on this one. But I think that if anybody wants to share, or at least reflect on this, of what was covered in this section, what stood out for you? And are you interested in a career in IT support? Okay, so because we have other stuff to cover. So again, what was something that you learned that maybe you didn't know, or whatever it was? Um, so yeah, so let's start talking about the career path in networking. And there's a reason why I chose these three or put them together: support, networking, and cybersecurity. And you're going to see towards the end of the presentation the reasoning why. They're very interrelated. And usually, believe it or not, this is a career path for a lot of people. A lot of people started in support, they went into networking or system administration or something to that effect. And then they went into cybersecurity. So that's been and that was, again, kind of my path. That's how we ended up in cyber. But a lot of the people who ended up in cyber started in networking, and we're going to see why. So let's look again at common functions. I mentioned a moment ago that you might have talked to somebody in the networking department or a network engineer. You might have never talked to somebody. You maybe communicate with somebody via email. But chances are that these are the people that really has very little contact sometimes with clients. They do communicate a lot with other groups, obviously, within IT, because, hey, why is my network slow? Hey, why the internet is down in room 301? So that's the thing. So this kind of people is invisible, but without them, we have nothing. And then it's so these people are doing their job when you don't ever hear from them. So if you never heard from them, or like, oh, as a network engineer, how long have you been working here? 10 years. I never knew you were here. That means that you are a really good network engineer. Nobody knew about you. That means that you've been doing your job really well, or you know to hide very well, one of the two. So in any case, common functions. Support internal servers and network devices. Okay, these are your servers that are within your organization, or it could also be stuff that you have in the cloud these days. Okay, So when we go to cloud, they are very interrelated because nowadays, you know, 20 years ago, most organizations had everything within their organization, you know, their own email servers, file servers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now half of your stuff, if not more than half of your stuff, is actually out there in the cloud, either AWS or Azure. But then who's taking care of that? Yeah, some people have a specific cloud department. Most organizations is somebody in networking that it's actually doing both the internal and external or one or the other. Okay, so sometimes supporting those internal and external servers, honestly. Some and virtual nowadays. Also, the other thing is like we run so many things virtually that you know, physical servers are now, when we used to have a rack, now we have just a chassis, and then we can run 100 servers in one chassis instead of having to have a whole wall of actual physical servers. So ensure network is functional and secure. And again, that is huge. This is where you're going to start seeing a lot of crossover, that especially with the secure part. Okay, some organizations do not have a dedicated IT security department or cybersecurity department, whatever you want to call it. A lot of those functions are being done by the networking folks, because their job is to ensure and to monitor that network at all times, okay, and ensure that secure transfer of data. I just said that. So next one is huge: backup network data. All right, so you know that unfortunately, actually, let's back up a little bit. I mentioned last week that the most valuable asset that most organizations have is their IP, their intellectual property, and their data. And they need to secure it and they need to protect it. Okay, because that's in reality what is the most valuable asset. Okay, so backing up data, your data is as good as your last backup. Okay, and data can be lost, damaged, stolen for a lot of different reasons. It could be nature, it could be a flood, it could be a hurricane, you know, it could be malicious, it could be, you know, an attacker, it could be somebody that penetrates your network and then steals information or changes the information, damages the information, whatever it is. It could be, most of the times, believe it or not, these people that do it not maliciously, but they end up deleting a file, changing a file, whatever it is. Your data is as good as your last backup. Okay. If any of those things happen, you know how, and it's about what data needs to be backed up, what, daily, hourly, constantly, or monthly, whatever. So it's all about that. And last but not least, the last one, optimize network performance. Again, we are so blessed that we have very fast networks, right? For all of you who are of my vintage, my age, remember dial-up, you remember how long it took to load a web page, and God forbid, download a song. Nowadays, you know, everything happens like this, and we have been accustomed to that. But it is necessary. It's not only a nice thing to have, but what it means, optimize network performance. Does anybody here know about the five nines? Has anybody heard about that? Well, five nines means 99.999% of the time. That is the standard that most organizations ask of their network departments, that their network should be running at five nines. The government runs at seven nines, 11 nines, sometimes, and even higher. So that means with five nines, your network can only be down for a couple of minutes a year. All right. So that's what it means. And it needs to be running fast and optimizing, making sure that it's not only up, but people is able to access the different things that they need to access and in the time that they need to access. Again, this is not just nice to have. Like I said, there are some networks that really need to run on super, super, super fast. They cannot have a lot of latency. And one of those industries, believe it or not, is the financial industry, the people that do the trade transactions. Now they have bots doing that. So it takes not merely microseconds for a transaction. The price, the price can be followed in less than a microsecond. So that's why they cannot be latency. So some networks need to run that fast, that secure, that resilient. So again, as you can see, these people have very important jobs. So let's talk about job titles. And I can say that the entry level, probably for networking, it could be something like network support technician, and that can mean different things for different companies, right? That for some people, maybe this is the guy who actually just run the cables. Believe it or not, the network cables and maybe patches the. If any of you have seen a network closet, maybe this is the person that patches the cables, that spaghetti to the different routers and switches and stuff like that. But the premier job, if you wish, is the network engineer. Then you have your network administrators. And the last two are jobs that are sometimes they do not really directly um, do stuff with the network, but has to do mostly with like the servers and systems, okay? And there's you have your systems administrators and your system engineers. And again, it could also be that some of the security people may be working here as well if the company is not big enough. As a matter of fact, most of the people that are in cybersecurity today have either come from a networking, support, or programming. Those are the three main areas that people that is currently in cyber have come from. So let's let's look again, medium salaries, and we're going to be talking about a network engineer. All right. $109,000. This sounds about right for a network engineer with about 2 years of experience in this area. So yeah, that now let's look at and again, everybody needs network engineers, more people than others, but networks are super important. So okay, job outlook. Growth rate 5%. Okay, not too huge, but not too shabby. Again, because most of these things are already um, being they're already there, so there's going to be always a little bit of growth. And there's also people that move out of this particular area. Again, a lot of people start in support, they move into networking, and then sometimes they move either to cyber if there's that such thing. But there's still growth. Okay, about 18,000 jobs, new jobs for network engineers projected over the next decade. And again, that's mostly people that is either retiring, moving on, doing something else. But they're always there. Okay. Network engineer salaries have increased 9%. Again, that's not super hot, but it's stable. All right. And 170,000 network engineers. That sounds actually that to me it's maybe a little low. But anyways, about 72,000 active network engineer openings in the US. Again, I think that a lot of that is people that is either retiring or moving on to different areas within IT. All right, so now let's talk about the technical skills for this particular area. Again, troubleshooting, we're not gonna go on that again. Windows and Linux operating systems. Okay, Windows, we talked about the why. We also touch about Linux, okay? And why is Linux so important in networking and as we're going to see again in cyber? Like I mentioned, a lot of the network operating systems and a lot of the operating systems that these network devices have. Again, if you've seen those network racks, that look like a Christmas tree and all those cables and all those, things. So those things are actually devices that have their own operating systems, and those are switches and routers and firewalls and, different things that make all the networking communication possible. All of that, it's usually based on Linux. I think I mentioned last week, is everybody familiar with Linux and the Linux operating systems are? So little bit of, first of all, why it's called Linux. So there was this operating system, grandfather of a lot of other operating systems, is called Unix. So on Unix, it's free. It's free. But there was this guy, computer science, and this was back in the late 70s, maybe. He is from one of the Nordic countries. His name is Linus Torvald, and he wanted to create a lighter version of Unix that, again, for free. And then he created the Linux kernel. And then again, as you can see, Linux comes from Linus, and Unix is a combination of both words. So he created the Linux kernel. In reality, Linux, there's hundreds, honestly, dozens of Linux distributions, because the kernel is what runs underneath, and then there's a shell that runs on top of that. Most of these distributions are free. Some of them are like Ubuntu. They are trying to be replacements for Windows, but they are the reason why they are superior to Windows for these particular areas is because they are mostly operated in as Unix. Unix never didn't have um, a GUI, basically a graphic user interface. In a lot of Linux, you need to do a lot of command line. That's how you communicate. So they are very powerful. The thing about Linux is that it's very powerful. There's a lot of things that you can do with just command line. So that's why Linux is super important in these areas. And then again, there are some distributions that are also proprietary, and they are used for specific things. Also, a lot of these companies that they have taken the Linux kernel, and they have created their own proprietary version for their operating systems. Uh, Little fact, I don't know if you knew, but Android originally, well, it's still, Android at the very core is actually Linux. It has changed a little bit, but the first versions of Android was basically just a Linux distribution. That's what it was. But anyways, so that's why Linux is important. So networking, hardware, and appliances. I already talked about that. You need to understand, again, what they do. What is the difference between a switch and a layer 2 switch versus a layer 3 switch and a router? And what is a firewall? And and those are all those appliances, those little horizontal things that you put in the rack, and sometimes you cannot tell one from the other. Okay, so you need to understand what they do. And especially if you want to be a network engineer, you need to know how to program, how to deploy them, because, yes, and how to update them, how to patch them, and do all these things. So again, goes hand in hand, network operating and monitoring systems. And then we're talking about vendor specific software. And that's exactly what I was talking about. Like, a lot of these vendors have their own operating system. So you need to understand that. For example, one of the biggest vendors for networking equipment is Cisco. Cisco actually has the biggest slice of the pie. So they have their own operating system for their appliances. It's actually based in Linux now, and but yes, so you need to understand and know that operating system and how to program these devices. And again, fundamentals of security, because nowadays they're very entrenched. Security and networking, and sometimes is one and the same. Okay, baseline soft skills, same as what we saw. The reasoning, exactly the same. The communication, again, you don't talk to a lot of clients, but your clients are other departments in the organization. The learning and research is huge. And yes, I think that I remember this when I was getting my master's in cybersecurity. Our capstone class was, we had to take different areas. It was a scenario. It was actually um, a scenario that we had to protect different areas. And unfortunately, my group had to protect the network. And of course, it got hacked within like 24 hours. And everybody was yelling at us, the why is the network not running? So yeah, so my thing was, after that, I was like, you know what, I don't want to be protecting that, but it is important. It is super necessary. So that's where the communication piece comes from, as you can see, and the organization. and the interpersonal. So very important on these things. All right. Again, I think that out of what was covered in this section, what stood out for you? And are you interested in a career in computer networks? We are going to talk after we cover the next part. We are going to be talking specifically about certifications and what do you need to start in these different areas. Okay. So, and again, you can think about these as like, yeah, can you go straight into networking? Yes, you can. Um, every path is different in IT, but you need to understand that the amount of knowledge to get into an entry level position in networking is not the same as the amount of knowledge that you will require to get an entry level position, i.e., help desk in support. All right. And then you're going to see why it's even more for an entry level position in cyber. Okay. We're going to discuss that. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. Everybody good? We're good? Okay. Just checking everybody. Why don't we take a break? Oh my gosh, and it's right on the money. So it's 7 p.m. Why don't we take a 5 minute break and we will resume in 5 minutes right here. If you guys need to use the restrooms, they're right next to the. So for the time, I'm gonna just stop recording for the time being. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those right now. But I'm gonna come back. Thanks everyone. We are okay. Let's continue moving because we do have more information. I hope that everybody it's taking some kind of something from this presentation. Okay, so all right, cybersecurity career paths. Let's talk about the functions, okay? And again, it's not necessarily in that order. That makes appear that it's a linear thing, but things can happen here in parallel, or they can have at different times. But you need to conduct vulnerability assessments, and what that means is, as the saying goes, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. What you're doing here is you're looking for those weak links. It's like looking where my holes in my system are, where is that I can get attacked, where is that needs to be reinforced. And you need to detect those cyber threats. Okay. So basically, as you conduct these vulnerabilities, you're always monitoring, and detecting and monitoring go hand in hand. Network monitor network traffic, and that's what I said, that a lot of people in networking actually are in cyber, or have started there, or are part of. Sometimes the cyber group is within networking, because you're always monitoring what's happening, and that's constant. Remember that that's a 24/7 job. Even when you are not using your network, somebody may be trying to get into your network. So everything is being logged. So you're monitoring. All right. And then as you monitor, you try to detect something doesn't look, okay, this doesn't look right. What's happening here? So you need to investigate that and detect if it's a cyber threat, right? But I want to concentrate a little bit on evaluating security controls, because that is huge. That is one of the biggest parts in reality for cybersecurity, because security controls fall into different categories. It could be a physical control. The lock in that door is actually a control. It's because it's protecting, whatever data is in this equipment. So that is a control. But also something like antivirus is a control. Uh, Access management is a control. But this is where it becomes difficult, because it will be really easy to throw security controls on everything. But what happens? In cybersecurity, there's this triad, or think about a triangle, right? And in each one of these corners, think about CIA, okay? So basically, you need to understand, as you increase one of these, the other two decreases, okay? So you need to find that balance. And CIA, by the way, stands for access. So you need to provide people access, because if you put integrity is the other one, and then so, as people need access, and they need to make sure that they access the correct data that they have, and that data has not been messed up with and is in the place that they need it, and they have access when and how they need it, and they don't need to open 17 locks to get to that file, right? Because it's really easy to throw locks, but now somebody has to open them, right? In every time. So that's where this is, you need to evaluate. The other thing is like, am I spending, am I throwing a security control that is $100,000 to protect $100 value asset? You know, so you need to evaluate. Do I need to just let this be? If this something happens, it happens. I'm just going to take the loss, or this I cannot. This particular data, this particular whatever it is, I need to protect it with. I have to throw everything that I have at this. So that is the valuation piece, and then advising staff on safe practices. This is actually a big part, believe it or not, of cyber. In your organizations, maybe you do have, they're always trying to educate you on how to spot, like these emails, don't fall for these traps, don't click on these links. So that is huge because believe it or not, most, and I said the vast majority of things that happen, the security breaches are not really malicious, okay? And for the malicious um, attacks, actually, believe it or not, the majority of malicious attacks happen inside from people inside the company and is not a hacker. So when we think in cybersecurity, we're always thinking about a hacker on the other side of the world, blah, blah. And yeah, that is a real threat. But believe it or not, the biggest threat sometimes is internal. So that is kind of like some of the common functions in cybersecurity. Now, this is something that I wanted to spend a little bit of time with here. And I'm just going to say that probably the information security analyst, it's the what is considered the entry-level job in cybersecurity. Um, okay, and we're going to talk about that. But I want you to see all the different titles here. And some of them are because cyber covers a lot of different things. So incident and intrusion analysis is kind of self-explanatory. The next one, let's talk about penetration tester. So penetration tester, it's basically also called a white hat hacker. So when we're talking about hackers, people that is trying to get into your network, a black hat hacker is somebody that is malicious, that is trying to enter your network for whatever reasonings they have. Mostly it's economical, sometimes it's ideological, sometimes they just want to see if they can do it. But those are people that is actually trying to do you harm. So a white hat hacker is actually a hacker that comes and tests your network, that tries to break your network. The difference is that at the end of the day, you pay them and they come and tell you, I found this hole, I found this, I was able to get here, here, and here, and you need to do this, and this to protect it. Okay, very interesting. But you need to understand, where the limits are and be very clear because there's potential legal ramifications. Malware analyst, so that is the people that actually dissect. When there's a piece, a new virus or whatever it is, worm, whatever piece of malware, they actually take it and they break it, they reverse engineer it so they can find the antivirus, right? So that's basically, it's a very interesting too. A lot of these people obviously are programmers, and this is where I said that a lot of people in cyber came from programming. Now you understand why. Cryptologists, this is interesting. And these are at heart mathematicians, okay? So everything in cybersecurity is possible because of encryption. And I'm not going to go deep into what encryption is. And I think that everybody understands at a very high level what encryption is. Basically, we are trying to obscure data, or we're trying to just make it that nobody can understand what the data is, that only the people that send it and receive it understand what it is, or they can decode it if you wish. So everything is based that. That's basically encryption, and we can talk for days about types of encryption. But these is the people that create these algorithms, because at the end of the day, these are just mathematical operations. That's what it is. These are the people that create these algorithms, the encryption algorithms, or try to break these encryption algorithms. The NSA has a whole department on cryptology. Okay, that's all they do. So data forensics, that's an interesting one. Again, just like their counterparts in the physical world, when a crime is committed, the people from forensics, the CSI, come to the crime scene to collect, I don't know, blood or fibers, whatever, evidence they have, and they have to do it in a chain of evidence. They have to do it in a specific way to analyze it so they can stand in court. Well, a lot of crimes today are committed in the digital format, right? So you need data forensics people that in the same way they can analyze, devices, they can copy them, and they can manage those so they can be used in a court of law. And the last two, compliance analysts. I want to talk about that because a lot of people do not put two and two together when it comes to cyber. Compliance is huge. When I was working here at the college, in cybersecurity, I was not doing any of the cool technical stuff. I was in compliance. You know what I was doing? I was actually making sure that the college it's compliant with a law that allows for us to take credit card transactions. If we were not compliant with this, the credit card companies can say, you know what, guys, cannot take any more credit card transactions. Can you imagine that? And then there's laws that the college has to comply with. One of them is FERPA. FERPA is a federal law that protects the information of our students, right? So, and there's a lot of other information. There's HIPAA. No, there's a lot of things different. So, compliance is huge. And why is cybersecurity involved with compliance? Because usually these things involves data, and who is protecting the data these days, for either clients, employees, students, whatever it is, it's going to be the IT department and the security department. But I want to talk about the last two. These two titles were not, these are new titles. And honestly, these did not exist 20 years ago, especially the last one, the Chief Information Officer or CISO. As you can see, is a C-level executive. And in most companies, they report directly either to the CIO or to the chief information or to the CIO, to the CEO or the CIO, depending on the structure. But again, security is so important now in every organization that this is a position that it was just created. Again, it started appearing about 10, 15 years ago. There's another one that I didn't even put here. The European Union about 10 years ago passed a new privacy law on how to handle customer data and how it's retained and all that kind of stuff. So anybody that wants to do business with the European Union has to have an officer that is certified in that particular law. And then again, these are jobs that are being created as the need arises, as these careers grow. So a lot of people is trying to get into cyber. Absolutely. Why? Because paying well, and it's very glamorous. You want to be a defender, all that stuff. That's one of the things that attracted me to cyber. So again, cybersecurity analyst, that is the entry level job. And I'm gonna try to explain to you what a cybersecurity analyst or a security operations center analyst, aka SOC analyst, do. Um, about $100,000 sounds about right. This is not the most glamorous job, believe it or not, and it's going to be affected a little bit of by AI. As I talked about last week, AI is affecting a lot of these different ones, and this area, specifically this particular position, may be affected by it. So, what does a SOC analyst do? It could be usually when you're hired, again, because you are security operations centers runs 24/7. So sometimes when you're just starting, they offer you the graveyard shift. And what you're doing is looking at logs the whole day, or like, trying to see alerts, because when you're monitoring the traffic, 1,000 alerts comes in, and then you have to go through them and looking at the security logs and seeing that this was out of the norm. You said if this does not comply within this, whatever, then it creates an alert. You need to go through those alerts. Most of those alerts are actually false positives. But then you have to look at it and then analyze it and say, yeah, this is okay. This is nothing. Next, okay, nothing, nothing. But then you find something. Oh, wait. We have something here. We have something. We have to investigate. And that's, how breaches are discovered sometimes. And hopefully you catch them while it's happening before it happens. But as we have learned in some cases, like a case that has become now a case study in cybersecurity, the Target breach in 2014 was 2014. um, the attackers were in their system for 8 months before they realized it. So that's why it became a case study. You don't want that. So that's where it starts. And then again, there's a lot of all these different jobs, and again, they are well paid. However, why is so difficult to get into cyber? A lot of people want there, and there's a ton, as we're gonna see in the next slide. There is a ton. There's a need, a tremendous need. This is one of the areas that has the most growth, security. But if there's so many jobs, why is so hard to get into cyber? This is the easiest way to put it, in my opinion. It's because how can you be a good protector if you don't know what you're protecting? So, in order to get into cyber, you need to know a lot. And that's basically it. Because you are protecting operating systems, you are protecting endpoints, you are protecting network, right? So, there's a ton of things, and that's what it is. Sometimes it's difficult to get into cyber, but it's doable. So let's look at the job outlook. Again, now look at that. The job growth rate is 32%. Okay. Over 35,000 new jobs, and this is just this one job for information security analyst. Remember that we're talking about these specific positions. We're not talking about any of the other ones that we saw on that previous slide. Okay, information security analysts have increased 12% in the last 5 years. So they are paying people. They are actually overpaying people if they have the correct credentials or experience that they need. Okay, over 33,000 employees currently in the United States, and wow, that's a eye opener, right? Over 110,000 active information security analyst job openings in the US just for that particular role. Okay. So now let's talk about those hard technical skills. Again, troubleshooting. We're not going to go into that. But now I did not put basic. I put a strong network and endpoint security knowledge. Again, for IT support, it's okay to have basic or foundational knowledge in networking. Here you need to have a strong knowledge, okay? Because again, just let's talk about what I just said. If you're looking at these logs tell you what happened, what port was used, what protocol was used. So if you do not understand what that means, you cannot know if this was a false alert or not, right? So you need to have a strong knowledge of how networking works, because these attacks happen usually at the network level, right? So again, Windows and Linux operating systems, the same as with networking, Linux is super important in cybersecurity. Um, a lot of the tools that are used in cybersecurity run only on Linux. And you know what's funny? That these tools are used both by defenders and attackers. Actually, there's a Linux distribution that is called Kali Linux, and it's completely free. You can download it, you can install it. I don't recommend that you do it unless you know exactly what you're doing. Um, it's a Linux distribution that has over 100 different tools for different areas of cyber. So there's a password crackers, including Wi-Fi password crackers. There's recognition tools, footprinting tools. And again, all of them are based on just command line. And it's free. I have messed with Kali. Kali is actually the name of the Indian goddess of both destruction and rebirth. That's why they chose that name for that particular distribution. So Linux is huge. Most of the tools used in cyber are run on Linux. A few run on Windows, but it's mostly Linux. So security software and tools. Again, I just said that there's you know uh, distributions. There's all these tools, monitoring systems that you need to know and understand, and vendor specific software. Again, it depends on the shop. They may want you to be know about specific systems, like it could be a Splunk, or it could be Snort, or it could be these very specific things that they use for file and log management and log aggregation. So this is the reason why it's a little hard to get into cyber. And then the baseline, the soft skills, exactly the same. And again, because you're still going to need to communicate with others. And on this one is actually even a little bit more, especially if you're in a role where it requires that you communicate with higher ups. Let's say, and I've been to a lot of cybersecurity conferences, and I've seen CEOs talking about the worst day of their lives, which is when their company got attacked. That's the call that you never want to hear. Uh, but there is a protocol. Here is not just you have to follow a protocol. Who do I need to tell, and when do I need to tell, and what do I need to tell after a breach has happened? And who there's a whole line of communication that needs to start as soon as you find something. So this is like a dominoes, the domino effect. Once the first domino falls, things start happening fast and really violently, honestly. So, and that's why those soft skills are also super very important in cyber. Okay, so with that, again, out of what was covered in this section, what stood out for you? Again, cyber, it's very interesting. A lot of people is interested on it. Believe it or not, I get a lot of people saying I'm trying to get into cyber, and we're going to talk a little bit about some resources here, but I want to start covering certifications because this is important, and this is, I think, where we are going to be getting at giving you some usable and actionable information for you guys. So the first part is a little bit of repeat from last week, degrees versus certifications, but then we go into specific certifications for each one of these areas. So we talk about, again, I already said this, IT is basically a skill-based industry, okay? So it is dominantly a skills-based industry, okay? So more than 25% of IT professionals do not have college degrees, okay? And this is the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. While it is not required to start, a degree can help moving up or getting into managerial positions. I already mentioned that. But let's talk about the difference between a degrees and certification. So a degree provides a breadth of exposure to various aspects of IT as well as other areas. So let's talk about an associate or bachelor's degree in any of the IT areas, okay? So you have to take a core of classes, a number of classes, 8, 10, 12, whatever it is, that is specific to that IT area that you're trying to get your degree on. But then you also have to take math classes, right? And English classes and some electives and even some managerial classes, right? Why? Because the idea here is that they're trying to prepare a professional, not just a professional in IT, but a professional, somebody that can know different aspects of what a professional means. A certification is a narrower path. Okay, a certification is not trying to tell you this person is ready to be a professional. This a certification saying this person is ready to do A, B, Z. So it's a lot more specific. So show that you have either foundational or a specific knowledge. Okay, that's what certifications are. So, and there are sometimes you can think of them as a shortcut, but in some areas is also um, and when I say shortcut, what I mean is like you don't have to go 4 years college to prove that. If you're just trying to get into IT support, right? Yeah, and a 4 year degree will be great, but you can also get into IT support with a certification. That's what I mean by a shortcut. But eventually, the degree will serve you as well. Again, um, that's what I meant by that. Okay. But now certifications can also be a complement to a degree. And that's why some employers are actually asking for both, right? So let's talk about information technology certifications specifically, okay? So I are often listed as either required or preferred on job postings and career positions. I already explained the why. Sometimes they are required, and I'm going to tell you the reason why required versus preferred. Especially in this area, if you see that a certification is required and is usually for, and you're going to see why. I think I have a slide in this presentation. If you are going to be working for any of the federal government, either as a direct employee or as a contractor, for certain positions, you must have certain certifications. Okay, you cannot work in that position unless you have this certification. And I believe I have a slide about that. So I'm going to come back to the preparation training, okay? And then can be vendor specific or vendor neutral. Again, they can be, for example, you can have a certification in networking, like Network Plus. What that means is like this person understand computer networks, right? So that is a vendor neutral. That doesn't say it's just these people understand computer networks and it applies to everything and everybody, right? But they can be vendor specific. For example, CCNE, a certified Cisco network engineer. Okay, that actually says something different. It says this person understands how to deploy, um, how to prepare, how to update, patch, program Cisco networking devices. Okay, so those two are actually complementary. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, but that's the difference between vendor specific and vendor neutral. And we already talked about this, can cover general areas within IT or can qualify working professional in specific skills. Talked about that. Let's go back to the second point because that's going to take a couple of minutes. So how do you get a certification, right? So it says that it requires preparation and or training, passing a test, and continuing education credits in addition to fees for testing and maintenance. Let's open that up. So how do you prepare for the certification? All right. Well, like I said last week, and this is a repeat of last week, in my opinion, there's a couple of different paths. Nobody tells you that you cannot go and schedule the test. If you think that you're ready, you can go and take the test. If you pass the test, guess what? You're certified, right? However, most people do not have that information or need to acquire that information. So there's a couple of different ways. Yes, you can try to find out the information yourself or buy the books. You know, a lot of these have either the official book or the unofficial book in Amazon, and then you can try to prepare yourself. That's one way. I don't necessarily recommend that one. Then there's the way that you can either go to a community college and, specifically, most community colleges have, workforce development, non-credit classes, so they offer preparation classes for certifications. We do here, I have a slide about that. There's also all these other institutes out there. I don't know if Lincoln Tech still exists, but they are all these other schools that have preparation courses for these certifications. Okay, what is the difference between these two, and which one is better for you? For the most part, while I say that if you are trying to actually gain the knowledge, I will say go to your community college. Don't have to be Montgomery College. We would love to have you here. Our sister program, ITI, will love to have you here. But every community college in the area can offer you. Why? It's going to cost you in the hundreds of dollars, and the class is going to be a little bit longer. You're going to have more time to actually learn. Okay. If you go to these other, preparation centers, usually the classes are a lot more expensive, usually in the couple thousand, $3,000, whatever, and they're a lot more compressed. Does that make sense for everybody? Maybe for somebody that already has a foundational knowledge and wants to get this done fast, okay? So see which one works better for you. And then there's the nuclear option, which is the boot camps. And I have done those. I only recommend those for people that actually understands and know the stuff. They just want an overview of what the test is going to be like, because they just dump that information, the 1,000 pages of that book, into 3-4 days. Okay, they are the most expensive ones, and by the end of that, you are like. Also, I only recommend those if you are going to take the certification test like right away after that. Okay. Now let's talk about testing. So testing, you have to pay a fee. Depending on the certification that you want to get, the fee could be anywhere from like $150 to well over $1,000 for some of these cybersecurity certifications, especially the GIAC ones are super expensive. And that's for a test. So what happens if you don't pass the test? Usually you have to score 80% or better. A lot of the questions are, most of these are multiple choice questions. Um, Usually they ask you the same question a couple of different ways to see if you respond or your thinking stays the same. Also, at the beginning, these are what they call dynamic testing. They start throwing you questions. They are timed. Usually it could be 3 hours, 2 hours, depending on what it is. At the beginning, they just start throwing you questions in different areas of the test. And if they see that you're starting to fail in one particular area, guess what? They start throwing you more questions in that area. Okay. I know. Also, some tests, specifically, I can attest to this for the CISSP, they give you 4 choices. And in reality, all of them are right. You have to choose which one is the best. So it could be tricky. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to tell you that's how testing goes. What happens if you don't pass the test? Do you get another chance for free? No. You will get a discount for your second try. And sometimes you have to wait 3 weeks or whatever before you attempt it again. All right, now you passed the test. Congratulations. You are certified. You're certified for life? No. Uh, First of all, most certifications do not require prerequisites. I'm going to go back to that into a minute. So you pass the test, you are good. But usually, these certifications only last you for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, you either A, retake the test if you want to continue having the certification, or B, during those 3 years, you accumulate continuing education credits, CEUs, or whatever they call it. And you can acquire this in a lot of different ways. You can take a class, you can teach a class, you can go to conferences, you can go to a lot of different things, but mostly or the way that I've done it always is by watching webinars, you know, related to that, and then you just submit them. If you complete them, you don't have to retake the test. Is that it? No, you have to pay a yearly fee. And that yearly fee for maintenance of that certification can be, used to be $75, the cheapest one. I don't think it is now. I pay about 200 and something for my CISSP every year. Why do I maintain it? Have I had other certifications? Yes, and I let them expire. Why? Because your certifications should be something that it's going to be useful for you now and in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years maximum. You have a certification that you got 12 years ago and you're still paying for it. You have to understand that you have to maintain all this. This is going to cost you money, time, needs to make sense for you for right now, what you're trying to do and what you're trying to get. Okay. I used to have the Security Plus certification. When I got the CISSP, I allowed the Security Plus to expire. Why? Because the CISSP is a higher certification. It supersedes the Security Plus. So why pay for 2 certifications? Does that make sense? Also, a lot of people think that by having 5, 6, 7 certifications that makes them look better. Not necessarily. For an employer, if I see that you have a certification in cyber and another one in, I don't know, you have an AWS certification and it's like you're all over the place. You need to show me that you are concentrating in one area, right? And as you can see, so some make sense what is called stacking. I already mentioned one. Having Network Plus and CCNE, that's a beautiful combo. That's like a peanut butter and jelly. That makes sense, okay? But some other stackings don't make sense. Sorry, I spent a little bit of time, but I think it's important that you understand why these certifications are important and how to obtain and maintain them and when it makes sense to have them. All right, so We are not affiliated with CompTIA. I have had CompTIA certifications. I have a couple of ones to pick with them, but for the most part, they are okay. They are the Computer Technology Industry Association. They're a nonprofit, blah, blah, blah. Why are we mentioning them here? Because their certifications are considered industry standard and are accepted or required by a lot of vendors, okay? So, and they are vendor neutral. So, this is where everything that we have talked up to this point is going to make sense to you. All right. So, A plus is a certification that is usually considered the entry level certification for IT. And it's usually required or preferred when you are trying to get a job in the help desk. Why is that? A plus covers endpoints and operating systems. So hardware and operating systems, okay? And then there's Network Plus. The title says it all. It's computer networks, and there's Security Plus. They tell you you don't need to. They recommend that you do A plus first, that you do Network Plus, then you do Security Plus. Guess what? You don't have to do it. You can jump. I never had A plus. I never had Network Plus. I went straight ahead and got Security Plus. Nothing tells you cannot have it because there's no prerequisites. Okay. But that's what it is. So, and those three are very mentioned as entry level certifications for each one of these areas, the three areas that we talk about: support, networking, and cyber, right? All right. So now let's talk specifically about these areas. So I already mentioned CompTIA A Plus is the entry-level certification for IT support, covers PC repair and troubleshooting issues, and also a little bit of networking and operating systems, mobile devices, and a little bit of security now. It has changed over the years. It used to be 2 exams. I think it's still 2 exams. You have to pass the hardware and the operating system exams. Now they have included a little bit of security and a little bit about mobile devices because it's important. So networking certifications, again, we have the Network Plus and the Security Plus, which, as you saw the way that they stack, and the CCNA, the one that I told you, Cisco Certified Network Associate. I'm sorry, there's CCNA and CCNE. Associate is the entry level, engineer is the higher one. And again, could be that it makes sense. Again, Cisco, and I'm not affiliated with Cisco. Actually, here at the college, we don't use Cisco, but Cisco is one of the biggest vendors. So it's important that before you try to get these certifications, you need to understand how this is going to serve you and for how long it's going to serve you and how much it's going to cost you. Like I always said, you need to understand what is at the other side of that for you, all right? So cybersecurity, entry level and associate. Yeah, Network Plus could be a good one. Security Plus is considered entry level. And then we have the CEH, which is the Certified Ethical Hacker. And then we have the advanced ones. But I have another slide. Don't worry about it. So as you can see, because of the different areas, we have the pen test, which is the pen test plus for penetration tester. We have the CASP. And then I want to talk a little bit about the CISSP, not because I have it, but because I need you to understand how some certifications work. Up until now, I told you that none of these certifications that we have talked about require prerequisites. Basically, you can go ahead and take the exam and get certified and you're okay. Certain advanced certifications require you to prove that you have a experience. So the CISSP requires that you prove that you have had 5 years of full-time experience, full-time paid experience in at least 3 of the 9 domains of the CISSP. All right, so aside from passing the exam. Otherwise, what they gave you is what is called the associate, which is basically you're in the parking lot, you're waiting until you have your bona fides, and then you are welcome to join the club. So this is why I'm keeping it. It was hard, very hard for me to get it. I actually got my master's and that certification in the same year, and I actually got a lot happier when I got the CISSP because of the ringer that I went through to get it, and that's why I still maintain it. So again, you need to make sure that it makes sense for you and what you're trying to do, all right? This is what I wanted to talk about, why certifications are sometimes required, not only preferred. And if you're thinking, what certification should I get? Okay, so let's talk about DoD 8570. DoD stands for Department of Defense Directive 8570. Basically, in the Obama years, this is when the cybersecurity thing started to kind of like become more of a concern. So they were like, okay, how we make sure that our people is prepared, and then the government, is prepared for this thing. Basically, not to bore you, what they came up with like, look, everybody that touches a government computer needs to have at least these certifications, for these different areas. That's why it became why we are talking about a government thing, because these certifications, and this is just a one picture, it's actually a lot bigger. What we're trying to say with this slide is like, if the certification that you're trying to get is somewhere here, is a good certification to have, because there are hundreds, literally hundreds of IT certifications. Okay. So if it's here, usually industry follows government. Okay. But now this is not exclusive. A lot of the Google free certifications that Google is now offering are starting to get some traction in the industry, but the industry usually follows the government. If you, and I don't want to get into what this level means and these different things, the bottom line for you is like, you're thinking about getting a certification, you're thinking you want to make sure that industry wants it, it's got to be somewhere in this matrix. Okay. And again, this is not the whole picture. All right. Wow. Okay, we're getting to again, why don't we this one, we may do the let's do this one, so that way we can also take a little break. Why don't we do this Mentimeter? Let me get my Mentimeter ready for you guys, because let me advance the slide. I'm sorry, where am I? Apologies, give me one sec. My Mentimeter, it's not okay. Here we go. So let me advance the slide for you guys. Oopsie. Um, that is the wrong one. My apologies. My apologies. Let me see what's happening here. All right, that's the wrong one. My apologies. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can get this back. This has been giving me some problems, this Mentimeter. But if not, what we can do is like, if anybody wants to participate, what certifications are you interested and why? Why do you think that that's something that you would like to get? And do you think that how you have it? Why don't we have a little question and answers about certifications in general? Why don't we do that? And I apologize for the Mentimeter not working. So any questions about certifications, any questions, comments, or anything that we cover certifications wise, because I think that that is kind of important. Then we're going to move a little bit into some resources for you guys. Yes, sir. Okay. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. So basically what the gentleman here said is that he's trying to get the A plus, because once you get the A plus is one way that you can start getting into IT. Correct. That's very, very good. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, A plus is considered an entry level certification in IT.
Hello. Uh, is that those three only because I'm doing another certification outside of
Okay.
it,
Uh-huh.
but like it's just because these three are most prevalent, or
Mm-hmm.
is there other ways to
Get to IT? So again, I think that it depends on where you want to start. What A plus, again, you need to understand what a certification or a particular certification proves to an employer. Again, if I'm looking at the resume and somebody says I have A plus, or even the Google, there's a support certification now that is free by Google. What that is telling me is that this person understands how to, troubleshoot and hardware operating systems. So I will consider that person obviously for a job in um, a support, entry-level job in support. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky because the certification not necessarily, well, it is going to prove that you have the knowledge. A lot of employers nowadays are asking for experience, and that is the hard part. So what is the difference between having a certification and experience? Basically, the experience is when the certification proves that you have the knowledge. Experience, and we're going to talk about what experience is, means that you have taken that knowledge and you have applied it somehow. And that experience could be, and this is where you need to rack your brains and say, don't necessarily have to be paid, don't necessarily have to be full time. This could have been something that you did for your church, that you did for your school, a personal project that you worked on. Anything that proves that you took that knowledge and made it into something, even if you didn't get paid for it, it's counted as experience. And that is sometimes the hardest part to get into a job in IT, to prove that experience. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Anyone else about certifications or anything else? Oh, yes, sir.
So what are you doing about the certification?
What certifications are the best certifications? The best certification is the one that is going to land you the job that you want to. So I'm not. What I'm trying to say with that is, like I told you, my recommendation before you get into any certification, and I appreciate you already have put some thought about the A plus, but you need to understand what that's going to get you. So what I recommend is that you look at the job that you want to get into. Okay, and I keep on using network engineer. So I will go into like LinkedIn and Indeed and all these websites and look at 3, 4, 5 different jobs and see what they're asking. And if you see that everybody is asking for network plus, then that means that you gotta get a network plus, right? So trying to see what is that they want. Sometimes we are led by what we want, or we put a value that we think something is going to have. My point is like we are all busy people, and then we are all working on limited resources, either be economics, either be time, whatever it is. So we need to make sure that whatever endeavor we go into is going to pay for us. It's going to pay us in the end for us. So do your research, see what is that they want, and then work towards that. But one more thing, and then I'll go to you. I recommend one of the things that we're going to talk about in the next slides is some resources. I think career coaching is huge. And we offer that here at the Ignite Hub for free. But career coaching is something that everybody can use, especially somebody that is trying to get into IT or trying to switch into IT. I think career coaching is very important. Talk to a career coach because no path is linear. They need to see what you know, what you need to learn, and how can you best position yourself for employers. Ma'am, you have a
Yeah, so based off the example you just gave about Network Plus,
yeah.
Is there any prerequisites for that one, or is that like the A plus and the Security Plus? Can you jump right into that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So they just cover different things. The A plus covers hardware and operating systems and a little bit of security concepts. So network, these are different blocks, if you wish. So the way that you can think about it is A plus is its own block, network plus another block, and then security plus is securing everything in network plus and A plus. Right, but if you have the knowledge here, the A plus knowledge, by all means, jump into the Network Plus. You don't necessarily need to have the knowledge in A plus to do Network Plus. It's useful, but it's its own thing. Right, and that's why I jumped straight into Security Plus because I already had all that knowledge. I didn't need to do A plus or Security Plus. But Network Plus is good, and the main thing, the most difficult part about Network Plus is wrapping your head around like the different protocols and how basically IP addressing and now that we have IP. But
how everything happens, how communication goes from point A to point B when you enter here in the browser, google.com, and then you get a website back, right? So everything that happens in those 7 layers and it goes down and back up again, you need to understand how that information, how those packets happen. And it is a lot. To be honest with you, it's just, again, I don't think that it's super difficult. It's a lot that you have to process, and especially if it's new. The only part that it could be a little scary is that if you're not too familiar with a lot of these acronyms and stuff, and that's why I said if you're trying to get one of these certifications and you don't have a very deep knowledge in these areas, take the preparation course and do it in a community college. That is what I recommend, because again, it's the cheapest option and it's the one that is going to give you, is going to allow you to learn the most. Does that make sense? Sir?
So how will AI go to?
Oh my God, that is a loaded question. How AI is going to affect all of this? So for the purpose of, so last week I talked about how AI it's already changing a lot of things. In some ways, AI is going to take some jobs. We know that. And it's going to take some entry-level jobs. Specifically for what we have discussed today, I think that the job that is most at risk, believe it or not, for AI right now, is that cybersecurity entry-level job. Because AI can do checking a lot of those logs. That job can be done by AI, but it's still, AI is going to be able to go from 1,000 alerts to maybe 25 alerts, but there's still a human needs to go and verify those things. Okay, so AI is, but also AI is creating opportunities. Okay, but AI, we have to understand what AI is really good at. First of all, we don't truly have a real AI right now. Okay, we are not at the level of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is the umbrella term for technologies that we have today. What we have today is machine learning, and we have large learning models. That's what we have right now. That it's going to evolve eventually and is evolving rapidly, yes. But what the AI that we have right now is very good at one thing and one thing only, which is pattern recognition. Okay, so AI can do certain things faster, more accurate than a human. And remember that the big appeal of AI is that these things don't need rest. They can work 24/7 and they can do it faster than you. So for those repetitive tasks, AI actually makes sense. But yeah, I don't know what the full impact of AI is going to be in the next 5 years. We just had yesterday, I guess, a speaker here talking about AI, and we're doing a lot of AI here at the hall because I think that a lot of people want to understand how this is going to affect us all. And yes, for right now, I think that those jobs, but still, I think that believe it or not, an entry-level job in IT support is actually safe because people still need to talk. How many of us have called, and then we get an AI, and AI just goes to, you're like, no, I want to talk to an agent. I just had to call somebody today, and when the AI came up, I said, agent, I want to talk to a person. So there's still, when you pick up the phone, you still want a human on the other end. So I think that's still safe. But once we get a real true AI that understands and can infer better than, but that's not in the horizon. But that's I mean, it's gonna be a disruptor, yes. As far as like, but it's like everything. I mean, we have seen this in the past. Some things are being taken over by technology, but then new things start. Yes, sir. Do you have another question? No. All right. It's almost time. I'm sorry. I'll get with you. So I just want to discuss a couple more things before we. So resources, because we're almost getting on time, and then I want to respect your time. So first of all, I talked about, here at the college, I talked about how you can get information, right? And I want to remind you that this is all community colleges have the non-credit and credit arms. Okay, the Ignite Hub actually operates under the non-credit area. And this is our sister organization within the non-credit area called the Information Technology Institute, or ITI. They offer all these preparation courses. Okay, they don't offer it all the time. They don't offer it at all locations, but that's one way. Again, you don't have to take it here at Montgomery College, but to me, that's one of the best ways if you're trying to prepare for a certification or you're trying to get some basic knowledge. Okay, so that's one thing. I also talk about other Ignite Hub services. And, here, everything that we offer here at the Hub is free. Most of it is virtual. And we offer this career speaker series, which, we have people that is experts in their areas, or people that come and talk about their career paths, whose information and whose point of view may be useful. So be on the lookout for this. And then if you see a speaker that is kind of like, in the area that you're interested in, do attend. And if you come here for the guest speaker series, if you come in person, you either get dinner free or free lunch. But you can also join us virtually. Coding and app design bootcamps are actually happening in a couple of weeks. We offer these free bootcamps for adults for introduction to coding and also introduction to app design. So if you're interested in those, look at our website. And then we have this other series, which is called Tech Jobs in the DMV. It's going to be renamed to something else, but the bottom line is like we are trying to give information specifically about tech jobs in the area, how to get them, how to better position yourself for these jobs. Then we have free career workshops and that career coaching that I told you. That career coaching is something that I think, and is on the next slide, it's free, and it's a one-on-one career coaching, and they help you. We have partnered with career coaches for this, and then they try to map your career pathway plan, because that's individual. Job search assistance, referral to community assistance organization. You want to schedule an appointment, that is the barcode. Again, everybody's going to receive a copy of this. And if you have any issues, by the way, scheduling an appointment with Chris, our career coach, send me an email. I'll put you in touch with him directly so you can schedule it. All right. So this is for your reflection. What was covered in this presentation, what stood out for you the most, but most importantly, what actions will you take after attending this presentation? So I hope that this was useful to you guys, and then you take some kind of action. And that action could be, I'm going to schedule an appointment with Chris. I'm going to attend, a career, whatever it is. But I think that there's different things. I'm going to learn more about this or this. So I'm going to ask you for one last thing before we leave. And again, I apologize, we are a minute over, but if you can take out your phones and take a minute to complete this survey. And I'm going to put the link also in the chat for our, the people that is attending virtually. And this helps me. This helps me to see how valuable this was. This helps us to better, do the programming here at the Hub. And like I said, this presentation, I revised it, I reviewed it recently, just a couple of months ago. This is one of our mainstays, but we try to keep it valuable and, useful to all of you. So with that said, I would like to thank you on behalf of everybody at the Ignite Hub. I'd like to thank also our student assistant, Amber, that helped us tonight. And on behalf of the other members of the Ignite Hub team, our director, Kimberly Blockring-Khan, and our lab coordinator, Anthony Fiora, to thank you for being here with us tonight. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to spend 2 hours with us. I hope that was useful to you, and then it was valuable. And then I hope that you check our other offerings here. And then if you have any questions, comments, or if you want to, just reach out to me, my information is there. And again, this session is being recorded. We will upload it to the YouTube channel, and I will send you all and everybody else who registered a copy of this presentation. With that said, I wish you all of you a good evening, and I hope to see you next Wednesday or next time here at the Ignite Hall. Thanks again, and have a great night. Thank you.